Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Bloomington City Council meeting on May 15th, City Clerk Nicole Bolden read the title and synopsis of an ordinance that would rezone nearly 140 acres of land off of South Weimer Road.
Ordinance 2024-07 to amend the City of Bloomington zoning maps by rezoning a 138.51 acre property from planned unit development and residential medium lot to planned unit development and to approve a district ordinance and preliminary plan regarding South Weimer Road, Sudbury Partners LLC petitioner. The synopsis is as follows. Ordinance 2024-07 would rezone a 138.51 acre property from planned unit development and residential medium lot to a planned unit development and approve a PUD district ordinance and preliminary plan.
Development Services Manager for the city, Jackie Scanlon, walked through a basic overview of the property, which would bring over 4,000 housing units to the southwest part of the city.
It's 138.51 acres and has a small portion of residential medium lot on the west side that will be rezoned as well. The comprehensive plan designation is neighborhood residential, and it is in one of our focus areas and is currently undeveloped. The petitioners are proposing a new planning unit development, which includes a new district ordinance and new preliminary plan. The idea is a plan unit development with 5 neighborhoods. They would be building 2 large rights-of-way that are in the transportation plan with a possible 4,250 dwelling units to be built on the site without having to come back to council for reassessment. And they plan to build the property out over the next 10 years. A trailhead and land for the fire station are planned on the east side near the Duke easement where the city Parks and Recreation are working on a trail. And there are a number of environmental protections required on the site as well. It is largely residential with some commercial uses allowed in the MN and MX designations, which are yellow and red on this map.
Then the council deliberated on 9 reasonable conditions on the ordinance. Among these conditions were restrictions on building height, affordable housing requirements, and an enablement of home ownership in each neighborhood, among others. Councilmember Dave Rollo took issue with a handful of conditions. He made a motion to postpone the ordinance until the council's next regular session in early June. He explained his reasoning for the motion to postpone.
Well, the hour is late. It's 11 o'clock, and we've gone through a whole series of amendments, some of which just arrived in our inboxes at 5:30 this afternoon. I have further ideas based upon what evolved this evening. I think we have further considerations regarding density and building height, because that was something that changed in my mind. I had various questions regarding traffic and the lack of traffic study. We had questions about affordable housing and some debate about that. And then, of course, we had a change in a reasonable condition relating to the owner occupancy.
Council parliamentarian Hopi Stosberg argued against the postponement of the ordinance, saying this is the 3rd time the council met to discuss this development, and she does not want to further delay the process.
I have found myself very involved in various reasonable conditions, and I think that some of them, for example, Councilmember Daley's, brought to mind other things for me, and I think that the time has passed for that thinking, and that if we'd wanted to make big changes, then we should have already done that.
Councilmember Matt Flaherty shared that he's sympathetic to Rollo's point of view, but he would not favor postponing the ordinance.
I regret that he only recently learned of a shift in one of the reasonable conditions that I had worked on, that we had discussed, he and I, last week, I think. I also was not at the meeting today, or maybe yesterday, that led to some of those adjustments. I understand his concern about that, but I just honestly don't think we're gonna, I think we all were working towards the same goals in kind of in good faith and arrived at what we arrived at, and that's kind of where we are.
The motion failed by a vote of 2-7. Councilmember Andy Ruff said he believes the reasonable conditions improved the ordinance.
While the reasonable conditions, I feel like, made this much better, and I really appreciate the work of everybody involved in doing them. I just have too many general concerns about a development proposal of this magnitude for this community. I mean, I'm concerned about the long-term impacts and the costs of growth at this scale. I mean, there's a lot of good evidence out there. I mean, some council members like to, refer to studies and research and the current data. There's a lot of evidence out there, research that shows that residential development, as a general rule, doesn't pay, the tax revenues from increased residential development don't cover the costs, overall costs of services and impacts on the community.
The council voted 7-2 in favor of the ordinance, with council members Andy Ruff and Dave Rollo dissenting. At the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on May 15th, Library Director Greer Carson gave an update on the Southwest Branch closure and ongoing repairs.
I am fairly confident this is the last update I will share without a reopening date. We are very, very close. So all of the main area luxury vinyl tile flooring has been installed. We actually have put a new LVT strip just outside of the study rooms where it used to be carpet. We noticed that when people come in and out of the study rooms, you get a little fraying on the carpet threshold. And actually, Brian Leibacher, who's here tonight, along with our contractor, both had the idea that why don't we do LVT strips right outside that as well? It might even look better, but it's certainly going to hold up to traffic better. And that wound up being a really good idea. So all of that is actually done. The Teens Place flooring is also completed. I reported last month that all of the painting and the drywall and insulation, all that work had been done. The large meeting room flooring is on order and arriving soon. It'll go in pretty quickly. It's one big, large space, so it doesn't take a lot of time to install that. The children's flooring has presented some challenges because the original carpet, of which 30 to 40% was damaged, we can't get. So we can't match the dye lot with the carpet that survived the incident. So we're gonna have to change out all of the carpet in that space. It'll be almost exactly the same, very, very similar pattern, very similar to what we have in the adult area, just a little bit brighter with a little bit more color. That order was placed this week. Should be in relatively quickly, but that's a huge part of our reopening timeline, is making sure that the children's space is complete. The children's program room flooring is in a similar situation. It's a very particular type of flooring. It has a lot of give to it. It's great for wear and tear and a lot of spills. We're going to have the same flooring, but it's going to be a different color because the original color is no longer available, which should be fine. We're still going to color coordinate in that room. So that flooring is on order. The HVAC mechanicals arrive, we hope, next week so that that work can begin. Speaking of that, the insurance subrogation meeting, which was scheduled for April 23rd, did occur on that date. It was specific to the HVAC system failure, and consideration of how this will fit within the final insurance claim is kind of where we are. So we are waiting for that final insurance claim in writing, but we did have the go-ahead to order the replacement parts for the HVAC system. We are hoping to announce our reopening date next week, along with pictures of the progress that's been made, which is pretty significant. So we will share that with staff and then give you all a heads up and then make our big public announcement. But I'm thinking we're going to be able to say that next week.
Next, the board discussed a policy proposal for paid parental leave. Director of Human Resources Becky Throckmorton spoke to the board about the policy.
Essentially, we currently do not have a paid parental policy. It's something that a lot of employers, including the City of Bloomington, have done just sort of as we're continuing to improve benefits for staff. Paid parental leave offers new parents, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the one who had the child, 6 weeks off of paid time to be home with that new child. The way that we've written this, it would include the birth of a child, surrogacy, or adoption to meet any of those needs that we might have from family structure across our library. The leave would be used in conjunction with FMLA. So FMLA currently gives people 12 weeks of time off for something like this. They would get 6 weeks of paid leave that they could use, and then they could also use that in conjunction with short-term disability if they had that and they were the person who delivered the baby, or they could use it in conjunction with their paid and sick leave to potentially have a full 12 weeks of paid time to be home with the new baby. We did specify that you do have to be here at the library for a full year before you're eligible for it, and that the leave does need to be used within the first 90 days of the baby's birth or adoption into the family.
Board member Amy O'Shaughnessy asked whether or not the policy would include situations where an employee is fostering a child. Throckmorton responded.
Something that we talked about pretty extensively, what we wanted to include in this. We did not include foster care because there's such a wide array of foster situations, and so this was truly to be parental leave for a family unit. And so foster care can kind of come and go. There's several different ways that looks. That is currently covered under FMLA, and so there are some protections there. And so we didn't include necessarily foster care specifically, but it would work for adoption. So if someone was to adopt a child.
The council unanimously approved the policy. The Monroe County Council met on Tuesday, May 14th. During their meeting, President of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, Jennifer Pearl, and the President of Enhanced Semiconductors, Bob Patty, shared with the council that Enhanced Semiconductors will no longer be pursuing a plan to move into the former GE plant on Curry Pike.
There's been a lot of money being put into semiconductor development in the U.S. and worldwide. We are disappointed that we were not able to get CHIPS funding, and there were some other avenues that were open to us that did not pan out also. The private funding at this point is very concerned that the huge investment made worldwide now in semiconductors, it may result in a glut in the market, and that has turned off a lot of the private investment. Almost $500 billion now has been put forward in government funding worldwide, and that will double to triple capacity of semiconductors over the next 3 years. And anyone would say that that is far greater capacity than the demand would sustain. So as a small company, we are seeing pullback in people's desire to venture into the market at this point. Nothing has changed in our opinion of that site. I think it would be a great site for advanced manufacturing. We are continuing with our plans in the Odin Westgate. None of that has changed. That money was separately raised. We have it in hand, and we are moving forward, and we will go into production there at the beginning of next year. Our workforce is growing. Equipment is being installed. So we are still dedicated to being in Indiana. Unfortunately, a plant of the scale that we had planned at the Cook site is just not in the cards, at least today.
Pearl elaborated on the process, saying that although the plant will not be going further, she said it has made the BEDC more aware of other opportunities.
There have actually been some very good things that have come out of this process. One is gathering the community in conversation around what's possible, not only for innovation along the corridor that runs from Indy to Crane, but also within our community. It has also reframed how we see the former GE site and the West Side Employment Zone. And so we are actually very grateful to Cook Group and others because we're looking at how we can use that as a springboard to promote that for future employment growth as well.
Later in the meeting, council members discussed the request to approve the Soil and Water Conservation District's new Conservation Resource Specialist and Manager job descriptions. Council President Trent Deckard said that the Personnel Administration Committee recommended the positions for approval and noted that they had been included in the latest budget. Chair of the Soil and Water Conservation Board, Whitney Schlegel, explained why the new positions are necessary.
Conservation efforts of our landowners has increased, and their need for expertise in this area has come to the Soil and Water Conservation District so that we are eager to be able to offer this assistance. Throughout the state, Monroe County is looked at as a leader in its efforts to assist landowners. And also we value all the partnerships that we have with the different stakeholders in our county, stormwater, McIris. I can go through my alphabet soup here of different acronyms, and working together to address these needs.
Councilmember Marty Hawk said she was upset that it was in the budget and she was not made aware of it in the PAC meeting.
What's been going on that this was added in this year's budget, and yet why this is really backwards? And why have we had to be spending so much time talking about the budgeting process and whether or not there was fiscal, what was already done? Why didn't somebody tell us it was in there? Believe me, I don't think you already knew it was in the budget. And evidently someone has figured out it was already in the budget. Why didn't somebody say so at PAC meeting? I mean, I really am pretty upset about this because I've spent a lot of time trying to research this and trying to figure out what's a fair thing to do and look at the budgets overall. And then you wait until this meeting, it's like, oh.
Council President Deckard responded that it has been discussed in the past.
Councilor Hawk, I appreciate your comments. I'll just say that I believe this discussion in the budget last year was pretty well discussed and narrated. And I'll say, because I'm one of, I think, 3 who have served as liaisons to this department. This one has been talked about since I had less silver on the sides of my head. And I don't mean to be facetious on that, but I believe some of that silver came because of discussions on this item. This has been discussed. My concern, look, we do have some money management to figure out when grant ends, when we start paying and all that. But my concern is that if any department would ever make a request and have something held for 3 years, while other departments come in and get things much quicker, some within this year. And so I want to make sure that this department is not being put through different paces than what is fair to the average bear. And we have before us 2 elected supervisors under a system we partner with the state on. So I just want to note all of that it's incumbent. So I'm grateful that this is even here today like this, but I think we budgeted with the thought it'd be a little bit quicker in how it did, but neither here nor there, we're here.
The next comment came from Councilmember Peter Iverson.
To me, this job description is about conservation, protecting forests, supporting small farmers, restorative agriculture. But I like to think, and I mentioned this yesterday in PAC, about climate change as a pie. And I'm hungry, so I'm going to talk about pie. A pie cut in 4 pieces. Conservation is one of those slices. The second slice is resiliency. We just had the commissioners celebrate Earth Day with a proclamation celebrating the first ever climate resilience plan of a county in all of Indiana's history. That's the second slice of the pie. The third slice of the pie is a climate action plan. And the fourth slice of a pie is a greenhouse gas inventory. I think if we're going to send this to WIS, that we need to send the job description to an expanded set of stakeholders that understand the whole pie. Because if we're going to be spending finite resources on a job, or we've already appropriated the jobs, it's going to be reverted, we need to be investing in the whole pie. Conservation, yes. Resiliency, yes. Greenhouse gas inventory, yes. Climate action. Right now, we do not have a staff person doing this work. We're putting the work on other staff people. And the last point I'll make is that the advice we're getting from climate partners is that we are leaving grants on the table because we don't have someone to apply for grants. Applying for grants is in this job description. So we know that this position can apply for grants, and it would be my advice to this council is to broaden the scope of this job description to account for the whole pie.
Councilmember Marty Hawk was no longer seen present in the meeting following Iverson's comment. Munson suggested that they table the item until their next meeting. The motion to table the item passed 4-1 without Councilor Hawk present. At their meeting on May 15th, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners heard a memorandum of understanding with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation in the amount of $30,000. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell walked through changes made to the agreement and what the MOU would entail.
We did make a change to one sentence in the agreement on 1BI sites. The second sentence is changed to read, explore site readiness for employment growth on target sites by working with partners to analyze if proper infrastructure zoning and other needs are in place. The previous version had the word ensures there, and that is not the role of the BEDC, but they are there to help kind of facilitate the conversation and make sure that people who are looking to expand know what's there and what would be necessary if they wanted to go there. So that is the one change. This is a contract that we have an appropriation that the county council approved for $30,000. Other than that change, this is probably fairly similar to what we've done in the past few years. Included in this, from my perspective, one of the more important ones is the Monroe County Airport support. I think we are working with Carlos. We are always looking to try to figure out how that piece of our economic development puzzle and how to best utilize that space. And I think that's been kind of an exciting part of this. It also includes other things that they typically do. I could tell you, working with as staff for the Economic Development Commission and the Redevelopment Commission, most of the tax abatements and most of the expansion that we learn about is from the BEDC, and that is they've been very good at funneling that information to us.
President of the BEDC, Jennifer Pearl, thanked the commissioners for considering the agreement and for the work that they do in the community.
All I wanted to say was thank you so much for the consideration, and we appreciate the ongoing work that we do with the county in trying to support our community, commissioners, council, staff members, and everyone else. So thank you.
Commissioner Penny Giffens said she's generally supportive of the BEDC. However, she does have some concerns with the Economic Development Corporation. Ultimately, Giffens said she would not support the MOU.
The county has 2 memberships already with the BEDC. That is one of the ways that we already support them. And I really do appreciate the work that they're doing with the airport. I want to see that expansion occur and some other things out there. But I am not happy with some of the things that the BEDC has done over the past year. In a column in the HT, at least one column, there was incorrect information about what was going on with our CDO. They were asked to correct it. They did not. That was upsetting to me. Then a bill was introduced in our legislature to change the slope requirements here and was aimed specifically at Monroe County. We know that from what was said by the bill sponsor. Several of us from Monroe County government went up and lobbied against this bill because we felt that it would not increase housing ability or capability or housing stock here in Monroe County, although it impacts every single county now all across the state. The BEDC went against its own member in lobbying for this bill. And I cannot imagine the BEDC doing that kind of thing to its business partners, that it would do those kinds of things. So I'm not in support of this MOU.
Commissioner Julie Thomas said she feels the same way as her colleagues, criticizing the conduct of the BEDC.
We have to do better. I am here, Penny's here, Lee is here. We are here to communicate and work with the BEDC, but we don't know what you're planning on putting in an editorial, and we don't know what you're planning on saying at a public meeting somewhere. And we're not asking for editorial rights. We are asking for that you will consult with us and communicate with us and give us time to respond, not, oh, I'm posting this in 3 minutes, I'm posting this in 2 hours. Give us the time. Let's fact check together. We're not going to agree on everything. And again, I get that. But we can do a heck of a lot better because none of that serves the community well.
The MOU with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation failed by a 2-to-1 vote, with Thomas voting a, quote, reluctant yes, end quote. The Ellettsville Town Council met on May 13th, where they discussed a resolution for additional appropriation from the general fund. Town Marshal Jimmy Durnall introduced the request.
This is an additional appropriation of $75,000 that will enter into a mutual agreement with the prosecutor's office to supply the police department with a detective/technician for an undetermined amount of time. Everything is paid for through the prosecutor's office and the grant. There's no cost to the town.
Monroe County Prosecuting Attorney Erica Oliphant explained the intention behind the resolution and how it would be made possible due to grant funding.
In 2022, I received a grant from the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council to establish and maintain a high-tech crimes unit here in Monroe County to serve 11 counties in Indiana. What we do is we process digital evidence, cell phones, laptops, other types of evidence, which is ubiquitous these days. We're all living on our phones. And it really does improve prosecutions, but it also can exonerate the innocent so that we can focus on different suspects in criminal investigations. It's invaluable. Our director since 2022 has been Levi Minnick. He is currently stationed at the Indiana University Police Department, but we are really looking forward to relocating and hopefully expanding our operations in partnership with the Ellettsville Police Department. As Chief Durnall mentioned, it is our intention to reimburse the town for Levi's salary and benefits. And we get a renewal of the grant every 2 years. So right now we are funded through the end of 2025, but it's anticipated that we will continue to get funding and hopefully a little bit more all the time. But so far since our existence, we've had 276 cases submitted and 511 pieces of evidence submitted and processed by Mr. Minnick and his team. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
The council unanimously approved the resolution. Next, the council heard a resolution to approve the purchase of a new aerial fire truck. Fire Chief Kevin Patton shared that the cost has increased since they last approved its purchase and said that they are going to have to wait a while until a new one is ready.
Us, like a lot of fire departments, struggle with getting a vehicle ordered because by the time it goes through the council approval and then I get to the sales staff to place the order, that vehicle's gone. So the RDC is going to pay for the vehicle. They're going to pay the town through a contract, much like we've done the last 2 vehicles. The town will be financing it, but they will pay us. And this allows me to, as soon as all of those documents are in, be able to put our name in the hat to get in the list order, because right now we're looking between 32 and 36 months to get it. 6 months ago it was approaching 50 months, and then it came back a little bit and then went back up. So right now is about as good as we're going to get.
The council unanimously approved the resolution. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.